Going over with you today are posted on the internet so that you can download them, read them, get yourself familiar with them when you have time. Where does this one go? Yes.
Do you want to film? Do you mind?
Yeah, it's just like that.
Because we're going to do rep training online.
Before the competition, you need to at least read over the Q&A. That's going to have the latest changes that are not necessarily in conflict to the rules, but they might validate or remind us of the rules. Sometimes they make adjustments. But those are going to be important to know before the competition. And then I'll review those with you the morning of the competition as well. But if you could have already gone over them, it's going to be a second reinforcement. It's going to make it a whole lot easier at that point. I think I'll start off with the field setup. The construction of the table on this table isn't quite right. The base of the table, this is where the kids are going to be able to mess with the robot. It needs to be pushed down in that corner. So see if a couple of you can work on getting this so that this black line and this black line are approximately touching this wall and that wall. Yeah? Okay, that's a really good question then. Let's figure out what the real answer is. When you have a conflict like that, what's important to do is to understand what the correct answer is. And let's see if we can just figure it out. So they talk about the field mat placement here. If I'm not mistaken, they're very specific about where it needs to be. The mat is smaller than the playing surface by design. So the playing surface is the wood surface in there, and the mat is smaller than that by design. Slide and align the mat so that there is no gap between the south edge of the mat and the south wall border. Center the mat east-west direction. So he's right on that. So it needs to be up against, now the directions on this are marked here. So can anybody tell me where the south edge of the mat is? Okay, now that should probably be up against this wall. Would we all agree with that? Okay, so see if you can work that out to get this up against this wall here, so not centered that way, and then centered the best we can east to west. So we look for equal gaps on the left and the right. So that's going to be on that edge and that edge. See if we can align that so that it's about in the center. And when you download this stuff, you'll find this under the field setup part. It talks about the mat placement if there's any questions. So sometimes you're going to have the kids asking you questions about how things are set up, and being able to reference the documents is probably the best way to do it. Let's see what else is important about the field setup. The dual lock of the models is that's the Velcro type stuff that goes underneath here. So we need to have these things locked in place so they can't move around. The dual lock is in certain places and not in other places. You guys shouldn't have to mess with that, but understanding the layout of the mat is going to be important. This is the bridge. This is the truck ramp. The truck needs to be centered on that ramp. Can you guys see if you can do that? So the rear axle needs to be held back by the red tab, and the truck needs to be centered on the ramp. So the kids are going to try to do something to release that. So they're going to do something like that, or I don't know, they may do it very differently than that. They may just pick up the truck or whatever. It doesn't really matter how they execute these missions. They're allowed to do it many, many different ways. There's rules that have certain requirements, but in this one, there is no necessary requirement to move that. That's just one way that they could do it. So we want the truck pointed down the ramp with its rear axle held by the ramp's red beam. The truck should be centered side to side on the ramp and parallel to it. So you're going to, each time before the mat, you're going to have to line this up relatively carefully because the kids might be expecting it to roll a certain direction, and the rules do require it to be parallel with the ramp and centered. The access markers, that's these things here. Gather around this side so you can see these things. They're a little bit hard to set up. When you set up the table each time, they need to be like they are now. The kids are going to be working on knocking them off like that. Can you see the difference? So you're going to have to set them up like that. And these things here, you don't want to have the up beam here touching the model. So it should be somewhere approximately in the middle there. There should be at least a little bit of space for it to move around on there, okay?
Are those backwards?
They might be. In fact, they are.
As
Those
you look
are
on
backwards.
here, you'll see that there's a little double wide oval thing there and a circle there. The circle goes where that little short post is. So this long black rod goes where the end of that double wide oval. So you'll just need to double check those. Once you've done it once, you'll just remember which way they're supposed to go.
The one back here is also backwards. The dynamometer is this thing here. When you go up to the table, just make sure that these things can spin freely. They should turn on their marks. I think that one's probably fine. I think this one's
No, I think that is right.
Or this one's right and that one's wrong? I don't think they're supposed to be switched, are they?
I think they are, actually.
Oh, are they?
I can't remember. I'll look.
Yeah, just check them. The sensor walls, there's 4 of those that are upright at the beginning of the match, these things here, and they need to be just in the markings on the mat. The last one needs to be over here, and the trick with that one is the nubs have to be facing that way. And what will remind you of that is on the print on the wall, it shows, on the mat, it shows the nubs on the bottom there. Does everybody see that? All right. The beacons, they're all the same. That's these things. And they just go on the marks on the mat. The loops. That's these things here. These things should be set up relatively straight. So when the kids are coming in, they may count on these being relatively straight up so that they can pick them up. So you want to maintain these as the day goes on, and just follow the lines on the mat. So this one you can tell needs to be that way rather than that way. And on these, you have to make sure that somebody doesn't come in and actually push these down so that they're stuck on there. That's wrong. They just need to be lightly placed on there. And then being bent over like that could really whack out the robot. So you really want to have them relatively straight up and down with these parallel to that wall. And the ones over there, just follow the map model for those. That's pretty obvious. This one here is a little random also. Make sure that it's facing this way and standing on top of there like that. The 5 pieces for the people down there, they just need to be in base somewhere. You give those to the kids when they come up to it. There's no particular placement that's required on that.